18. My name is Russell Keating, and today we have Pat Braden, and Pat will be interviewed by Dale Ladisler, continuing our Canadian Stickist shows. And before we get started, I just wanted to tell a little story, and then I thought, wait, you can't tell a story because Pat does that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check this out and see what he does. Dale?
Hello, everybody. It's a total joy to be here interviewing Brother Pat. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, Sister Dale. Yes, indeed.
All right. Okay, I just wanted to do a little geographical I don't know if you can see this. Can you see this? Okay. Okay, so Edmonton is like right about here, and Yellowknife is way up there. It's by Santa's workshop. So, I just wanted to tell you a bit about Pat. How long we've known each other, Pat? How long have we known each other, man?
Oh, going 23? No, maybe even more than that, 24, 25. I think 89 was when we bumped into each other.
Yeah, you babysat me when I was 4, right?
Oh, please. I'm already
yes.
being called
so,
the elf up here, so.
Yeah, so Pat Braden has been playing stick for, goodness, a long time, but he started on bass, and he has played in a variety of incredible groups and bands. Started out as a bassist, but what I wanted to do before we did anything, Pat, is I wanted, because it carves out and permeates all of the music that you do, I wanted you to tell us a bit about the land and the world that you live in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories.
Ah, okay. We're in a place where the glaciers basically just scraped everything right down to bedrock, and so it's very flat. People sort of talk about it being the same in northern Ontario, so it's very flat, but just a lot of exposed rock and a lot of really small trees because of the extreme winters, the short growing season, and all the rest of that stuff. The trees here are really small, they're really skinny, and they're really short. If you go about 150, 200 miles north of here, there's a imaginary line, and they call it the tree line, and after that there's no trees, there's just shrubs, right? And so that's called barren lands. So it's very sparse, but we do have like 1 million lakes up here. There's all kinds of small lakes and stuff, so if you get up in an airplane, that's what you sort of see. You see the tracks from the glaciers as they sort of push their way down, and then you see these lakes that just go on forever. And so this just sort of carries all the way up to the Arctic Ocean. Let's see, we get, right now we're getting about 20 hours of sunlight. It never really gets dark. It just sort of gets dusk and twilight, so that kind of messes you up a little bit, just trying to get some sleep. But what I find this time of year is that there's just an energy that happens with all of that light, and really the leaves just came out here within the last week, and the ice maybe off the lake within the last 2 weeks, and so everything is fairly accelerated right now, and it's a very short growing season. But like I say, the sun's sort of up all the time, and so that gives you just a real pile of energy, which is sort of a complete 180 degrees to the winter time, where on the shortest day of the year, December 21st, the sun kind of makes it up over the horizon at about 10:30 in the morning and just barely gets over the top, and then it just sort of falls down again around 3 o'clock. And then the rest of it's just like it's just dark and cold. And that time, you know, you just sort of feel like hibernating as opposed to sort of running around and getting all this energy. But I sort of explain it. It's it's a land of extremes that way. It's light and dark, hot and cold, and it sort of draws those kinds of people up here too. The people are kind of extreme. They're very eccentric, and you know, they're either very far sort of right wing or very far sort of left wing. You know, so it's kind of an interesting place. And you know, over the years, I've even just sort of found people sort of trying to run away from something in the South or some kind of situation. They'll come as far away as they can, and they usually land here. And I've met lots of people like that. I mean, I've been up here. It's 50 years from me that I've been up here. This August, and so I've seen lots of people sort of escape up here and sort of rejuvenate and refine themselves that way up here. So it's home. You know, not for everybody, but I keep making my way here, and I love the land. I love the solitude, the quiet, the fact that I can just sort of put my canoe in the water and in 5 minutes be across the bay and be in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the wilderness. You know, it's so close. Yeah, all of those things. I got family here too, and that's pretty important to me. Always has been, and so I think that's sort of a lot of the reasons why I stay.
Yeah. You started as a bassist, but then the stick found its way to you. I remember you telling me that you attended the National Guitar Summer Workshop with Frank Jolliffe, like Gene did. Gene was taught by Frank, and I'm just wondering, you attended that the year after I went there. How did that go for you, and how did the stick find you?
Okay. 1986, picked up a Guitar Player magazine, and there was this article on Emmett and this new instrument, and I've been playing bass for 8 or 9 years or something by that time. I'd gone to college and I'd studied string bass and bowing technique. The original plan was to sort of get into the jazz bebop bowing, right, and get into that, but then I got into music school and just started playing. So I was just a plain fool in Edmonton there for about 3 years, and I kind of lost that direction. But at the same time, the songwriting thing became stronger in me, and I wanted to go to an instrument where I could compose and actually sort of present my songs in what I was doing. So obvious choices are keyboards and guitar. And I just sort of wanted to go left, you know. I wanted to do something different. This instrument just sort of came along, and looked really here. I wrote down to Emmett, and I got him to send me the video. And I looked at the video, and I went, wow, this looks really cool. And it looks kind of easy. Well, I wouldn't say it looked easy, but it sounded really cool and all the rest of that stuff. So within about a year and a half, I was, you know, stepping off the plane in LA and jumping into a cab and going up to this place that he used to have in the hills there. And he was so gracious with me, man. He was so cool. It was like, yeah, you know, he knew I was coming, and sort of walked into the house, and we looked around and chatted for a bit, and there was sticks lined up. And he just kind of said, okay, take your pick. You know, which one do you want? And set it up for me, did some playing for me, did a demo. And then I brought that back, and I you know, I'm not sure about anybody else's experience when they first get the stick coming from another instrument that way, but I mean, the thing just scared the shit out of me, right? And I just sort of looked at it for about a year and plunked away on it and stuff like that. And the National Guitar Summer Workshop thing just came along, and I went, okay, this is where I need to go. I've got to get into this. So I just went down there and was lucky to catch that time with Frank, and he was very gracious as well, and to meet a whole bunch of other stick players, and then to hear about you, because everybody was talking about you, and then I tracked you down within the year. So that's about how it all sort of started for me.
Sweet. You've performed with people like Tom Jackson, Natalie McMaster, Susan Aglukark, William Calder. You opened for, I didn't know this about you, man, but you opened for the legendary pianist John Stetch. Woohoo! you've played in bands and as a soloist. Is there a role that you prefer?
Is there, sorry, one more time.
A role that you prefer. A role that you prefer.
Okay.
Is there a role you prefer?
As in like opening act or solo or like, sorry, role, what kind of role?
You're making it hard for me, man. Do you prefer to be in a band setting, or
Okay.
do you like to play as a soloist?
Okay, got it, yeah. It's been a very solitary kind of a thing, and again, I guess when I took this instrument on, and I sort of had, I heard, I heard, if you can hear a vision, I guess you can hear a vision, but you just sort of formulate or hear in your head, okay, this is what I can do with this instrument. And I was sort of really enamored by at that time with some of the stuff Bruce Coburn was doing with spoken word over music, and also a fellow out of the States, his name is John Trudell, one of the leaders in the American Indian movement, but he was doing a bunch of stuff with a guitar player named Jesse Ed Davis, and it was completely spoken word, and Jesse Ed was doing the music over it. And so that's sort of the template that I had for this instrument that way. And so I was kind of pursuing that. It wasn't so much that I was looking at putting it into a group situation, because I wasn't hearing it then at that time. And so on the Chapman stick, and just the way things have gone over the last, I guess, 20, 25 years, it's been a solo performing instrument, and I'll maybe have one other person, maybe a soloist or something like that. So I guess the role that I prefer is as a soloist with the Chapman stick. Now that being said, it's with the bass playing. I've been playing bass a lot longer, and I can move around, and I can move a band, and I can do the stuff that I want to do within the ensemble on the bass as that sort of function. That's sort of been the training. I've still got like sort of one foot in old school. I sort of cut my teeth playing big band swing, playing old rock and roll, playing country. I mean, you play everything up here. You know, when you're sort of out in the sticks, you got to play it all. And all of those musics sort of serve a function. You know, you're at a dance or you're at a wedding or whatever, right? And you gotta play all of that stuff. And I just found with the stick, and maybe this is just because of isolation, just because I haven't had that opportunity to work with a group of people to be able to sort of develop my stick technique, approach, how I could integrate the stick into a group situation. And so it's been really hit and miss with me. And so I just sort of distanced myself, I guess, from that. I just went, okay, when I got the stick on, it's the solo thing, it's the Pat Braden show, storytelling, whatever it is, songwriter, singer-songwriter. And with the bass thing, it's like I'm the side man. And so I've sort of really kept that divide in between the two of them. I really wish that I had the facility and the technique to be able to just kind of, oh, I think I'll play this one on stick, and to be able to put it down and then pick up. But no, it's like I have to really, really work at the parts to get like even the second part in, to get the technique as well. And I've also found that over the years, and talking with different players and producers and stuff like that too about it, is that it's just the design of the instrument is different. I play a precision bass, I play string bass as well. And when you hit that low E string, there's that length of string, there's that gauge of steel that's there. There's, you know, Leo knew what he was doing when he put that thing together. So there's a sound that happens there that fits the function ensemble in a band, and so it sort of puts that power underneath it. And I am still on my, I call it the never-ending quest for tone with the Chapman stick, to be able to feel that I'm bringing that function and that support to the ensemble with the Chapman stick. And so I think it's just sort of a matter of time and me getting over myself, and eventually I'll sort of be able to put into something. But I mean, as you can see from my CV as well, I mean, you know, it's been soup to nuts for me for pretty much my whole career. It's not as if I did R&B or I did big band swing or I did pop music or whatever for this, you know, this length of time, and that's all that I did. I mean, I'm playing all kinds of different music.
Yeah, let's talk about some.
Bringing that function, that support to the ensemble.
Let's talk about some of those.
And so I think it's just sort of a matter of time and getting over myself, and eventually I'll sort of be able to get into something. But I mean, as you can see from my CV as well, I mean, you know, it's been soup to nuts for me for pretty much my whole career. It's not as if I did R&B or I did big band swing or I did pop music or whatever for this, you know, this length of time. That's all that I did. I mean, playing all kinds of different music.
Yeah, let's talk about some. So,
let's talk about some of those. And so I think it's just sort of a matter of time and getting over myself, and eventually I'll sort of be able to get into something. But I mean, as you can see from my CV as well, I mean, you know, it's been super nuts for pretty much my whole career. It's not as if I did R&B. Get over yourself.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Sorry, there was a bit of looping or strangeness going on there. I want to talk to you about Shack Tales. Because just to tell everyone who's here, that centers around the very place that you are sitting in right now, a 1930s squatter shack that you raised your family in. You want to talk a bit about that and how the storytelling came to be such a powerful part of your repertoire. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Sorry, there was a bit of looping or strangeness going on there. I want to talk to you about Shack Tales. Because just to tell everyone who's here, that centers around the very place that you are sitting in right now, a 1930s squatter shack that you raised your family in. You want to talk a bit about that and how storytelling came to be such a powerful part of your repertoire. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Sorry, there was a bit of looping or strangeness going on there. I want to talk to you about Shack Tales. Because just to...
Okay. Can you hear me there?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, when people use apps, it causes delay.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to shut everything down here on my end, but okay. So you're asking about Shack Tales and how storytelling.
No, it's good. Go ahead.
Yeah. Back around the mid-2000s, there, you know, at a certain point in time, I guess the goal has always been to be a professional musician, make my living off of playing music and stuff. And up until about the 2000s, early 2000s, I was doing okay with that, and then it dried up like amazingly. So I was sort of at the point where it was like, okay, well, it's been a good run, you know. I've been doing this for whatever 20, 25 years or something like that. It's time to hang it up and go and do something else. Circumstances, people, opportunities sort of came along, and I got a chance to sort of push that whole spoken word thing to the next level, and put together a couple of pieces that turned out to be sort of the anchors for these two shows that I put together. The first one called The Place to Call Home, which is about Yellowknife and me growing up here, and then the second one, the sequel to that, is Shack Tales, where my kids are growing up, and I'm sort of going through fatherhood and then out into middle age and stuff like that. And so I got to put, I guess, the very early versions of that up in front of some theater presenters who, at that time, the storytelling thing was really hot and it was really cool, and they really liked what was going on, and I got to play some incredible halls and got some incredible opportunities, and so that got me to work on these storytelling shows, 90-minute, 70-minute shows, basically monologue with Chapman stick. And so the Chapman stick wasn't the centerpiece of it. I mean, the story obviously was, and so the Chapman stick would sort of come in behind it and be playing either very functionally within, you know, just playing a song that followed a story or preceded a story, or while I'm telling the story, I'm playing the textural parts underneath it and going through, you know, a chord progression of some kind in that it would underline the story. You know, I'd be talking about a blizzard or something like that, or the winter time, and I'd be able to through effects units to be able to sort of, you know, create the sound of a howling blizzard, or to imitate the sound of sort of water flowing with a delay and a lot of reverb or something like that. So just using the stick to sort of paint a picture in behind the story, but it wasn't, like I say, it wasn't the front end part of it that way. And so I've sort of developed, I guess, a style there where the music and the words of the spoken word and the music would sort of have this equal sort of footing, but it was always very complementary. You know, there was always a really good balance there between the spoken word and the music that I was putting together. So I did those shows and still have those shows,
Yeah.
and still getting work with those shows. And yeah, it's cool.
So I love a lot of stuff that's on Shack Tales. Do you want to give us just a sampling of that?
A sampling of that? Okay. Let's see what I can do here. Oh, I'd like to invite you to sit down and have a listen to some stories that I have to tell you. Well, some songs I have to sing. Well, some of the faces I have known and some of the places I've come to find. So, through days long forgotten, lives long since lived, I've searched for an answer to why. Why do I call the North home? Well, I seek out its heart through my eyes as a child, when the men were all legends and the women were all saints. Well, they dared to stay on and persevere in a land of extreme to build a place to call home. Seek out its soul in the still of the land, the scarred and the sacred by the hands of the Creator. It's been a long time since I've done this one. Seasons, migrations, borealis, and the stars they're always there to guide me back to this place that I call home. And the red and the white, the yellow and the black, and all of their extremes, they struggle to survive. Earth, air, fire, and water, to build a life for their families. A place to call home. Yeah. And then I go into a story about, you know, growing up as a kid and Christmas time is coming. End up talking about or singing a song. It's called "Call," and it's about the first guitar player that I ever saw. And, you know, so it just sort of segues from one piece to the next piece to the next piece. Just sort of stories about growing up. So that's, yeah. Sorry, it's a little rough.
Great, man. That's great. Tell me how you walk me through the process, or walk us through the process of how you create, how you compose. Does it start with a groove? Does it start with the story?
Sort of depends. I do a lot of just free, open jamming. Usually, as soon as I put the stick on and I get my sound, I'll have a recorder sort of running and I just find those first ideas that come through down the pipe when you got the instrument in your hand are really good to sort of just catalog and to record and keep those things there. There might be a melody line that'll jump out of that one. Groove, yes. I'm just sort of starting to dabble, playing with loops and stuff like that, with drum loops and computer. I got a little Pro Tools right here that I'm just sort of in the waiting end of the pool. I'm getting used to that stuff. And then other times, like a songwriter as well, it's a lyrical line that just sort of sings to you right away. You know, Calling Archie was sort of like that, and those songs just sort of fall out of you in like 5 or 10 minutes, and there it is, right? So yeah, but a lot of it comes just from that sort of free-form jamming. And I guess, you know, going back to one of the first times that I saw Emmett play, and then to read through what he was talking about, and the reason why he designed the instrument in the first place was as an easier mode for improvisation, you know, and to be able to just physically through patterns to be able to sort of shift keys, you know. Again, I'm just sort of making this a lot simpler than what it is, but just it was a vehicle for him for his improvisation that way, and so that's sort of what it's been for me. But it's sort of always been towards that songwriter sort of end of things.
Did you, sorry, Russell has a question here. Did you say when you started storytelling, was it before you got the stick or after you got the stick?
No, it'd be after. The whole storytelling thing sort of happened, like I say, in the mid-2000s, where it kind of took off and I put together these shows. But even going back to the early '90s, when I you know, I did, I very bravely did my first cassette. I think it was 1991 or something like that. I'd had the stick in my hand for a couple of years, and one of those pieces was a spoken word piece. My God, burn that thing. But yeah,
so,
you know, it's always been sort of there in the back.
Careful what you give Dale. Careful like what you give after Dale. Like seriously, this is the like third week running where she's broken out a cassette of somebody and been like, it's her.
A lot of your delivery, Pat, reminds me of early Tom Waits, kind of a troubadour. You know, when he was doing the troubadour phase. Ravenhair Comes to Call. Great story with R&B feel. That is off of Shack Tales again, and I'm just wondering if you could just give us a small sample of Ravenhair, and also if you could then talk about how you. I love on the DVD. The Shack Tales is a DVD as well, and it shows how you mapped out the story from a mural.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to walk us through that creative process?
So I'll walk you through the mural here first, I guess. I went through at least two major revisions of Shack Tales, and the first one I was definitely not happy with, and so I was trying to pull together this whole conceptual thing to bring all of these stories. I had reams of written word and stuff, and so I was working with a theater guy, and that's sort of one of the exercises that they go through, and it's sort of a visualization of it. And so, I mean, I think any of my artistic talents were completely squashed in like about grade 2 or grade 3, and so it was like, okay, you're making this mural and you have to paint this picture, and so I just sort of did this whole shack, and then part of the exercise was taking different colored yarn to connect physically the picture of the shack to a certain story, and how that was all going to sort of get integrated. So it was just it was an exercise in visualization, just because I had all of these pieces and I didn't have a clue of how to pull it all together and into a sort of conceptual storyline and into a presentation that way. So that was sort of part of the exercise there. It wasn't like the first one where, you know, it's like you write your first book or your first album, where you have your whole preceding lifetime of songs that you can sort of draw from in order to, and you pick the best ones, and boom, that's what comes out the first album. Then you have to do the second one. So you have to work like hell in order to sort of carry that through, right? And so I was having a bit of trouble, like I say, sort of pulling that all together, and that was just sort of the processes that I worked with. I guess the guys are kind of like a dramaturge that way, and he sort of walked me through that whole process. So, but yeah, a little bit of Raven here. Let's see what I can put together. he stepped off the de Havilland Otter and onto the ice of Back Bay on a sunny spring day in 1962. So he'd been transferred to Yellowknife by the Survey of Canada as a summer student. Well, his first lodge was in the Yellowknife Hotel in Rock. Well, back in those days, the Rock was a mishmash, a smattering of more of a collage of wall tents and shacks and log buildings. He watched them unload those airplanes and load up those flatbed trucks from his hotel window. Over the next day or so, he set about exploring this little gold mining town that was springing up out of the bedrock and the lakes of the Canadian Shield. And after a couple of more days, well, his own wall tent was ready to move into, so he made his way on down to Weaver at the Board Trading Limited to get himself some dry goods and some tobacco. Well, that was when he first saw her. She was wearing an apron and stocked on the shelves with some canned milk and singing along. That's Klein radio. He could not take his eyes off her. Small, lithe body, long, shiny, raven black hair tied up in a braid. He was standing close enough he could smell the wood smoke in her hair. Soft, dark skin. But he stood paralyzed in the middle of the aisle. He loved Doug, actually. He was wide-eyed over an armful of tin cans, a 20-pound bag of flour, until she noticed him and gave him a brief, shy smile. And just as quickly the smile fell from her face, she turned red, backstory. See, back in the day, a white man with a Dene woman would have been frowned upon. Yeah, sure, there have been others who had coupled up over the years, but it seemed they paid the price in isolation from their own. Yeah, the white folks, they stayed pretty much to themselves, as did the Yellowknives. But he found he could not stay away. You want me to do a verse?
Yeah.
In a dream she comes to me, from somewhere in the night. Silently she beckons me, just beyond the light. Wind begins to blow, sled dogs start to howl. When raven hair comes to call. Yeah, it sort of goes on like that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so, that kind of thing, so, story goes into song, goes into story, into song, and so, like I said, it just sort of balances out that way.
Awesome. I love how you're, like I think Hold a Candle is on A Place to Call Home, is that right?
No, Hold a Candle it's sort of a real new one. It's another real new blues song. I'm not really quite sure what to do with that one yet, but.
Well, I love how your voice sort of morphs into some kind of Southern blues man kind of a thing. How did that tune happen? Did the bass line happen first, or how did that get built?
Yeah, just that groove. I mean, it's just the one groove. It's just sort of goes on the G minor forever, and then a quick turnaround, and I guess the words sort of came along with that. I mean, it's real sort of subtle. I mean, I'm talking about my baby. She don't want no silver, no gold. She just wants a good man, keep her warm from the cold. My baby don't want no flowers. Baby don't want no ring. She just wants a mountainside where she can sing, sing, sing. And it's just, it's a very subtle. My baby is just, it's the land around here. It's the place that I live in and that I grew up in, and we're sort of in the middle of a boom here, and that there's all kinds of resource development that's happening at the expense of some of the most pristine natural wilderness that's happening. In spite of cultures and languages and tribes of people who have survived here for thousands of years, who are going to be just basically decimated by this bust or boom cycle that's coming along. And so my baby is, my baby is there. It's like we don't need all this shit. It's like, so it's that kind
Yeah.
of it's a song I just sort of wanted. And plus, I remember playing with this guy named Ron Burke out of Calgary, and he would start off usually the night. Yeah, it was usually the night, and we'd just sort of be playing a Stevie Ray Vaughan groove or something like that. And he would play that groove, and he wouldn't solo or anything like that. We would just groove for like 5 minutes, and it was just a way for the band to just kind of like just sort of come around that groove and feel each other out. And it's just that one thing. And so, yeah, it just sort of worked right into what I'm doing with the spoken word and stuff like that too. So, love the blues too.
Right on, right on. So we're gonna. There's a lot of really positive comments coming on the group chat portion of the of this here. So we're gonna open it up to some questions. I know Dave Broski, Debro has a question for you.
Shoot, Debro. All right.
There
Hi,
we
Pat.
Hey.
Great, thank you. I love your stuff. I was reading the preamble on Stickist, and Oliver, one of our guys, had said that he had listened to your music on the way back, music and spoken word, and he actually started to cry, which I think is a great compliment to your ability to move somebody. He said it was so good, so moving, and so powerful. I mean, it wasn't like, and I think that's. I said I got to tune into this, so Dale sent me an invite, and I said, you know what, I got to be here for you. I love this stuff. And were you influenced by a lot of the beat guys like Kerouac and Ginsberg? Because you have a real easy flow to what you do.
I just learned about Kerouac and then sort of what he was doing. That's a little bit before my time. I still have to go back and sort of check some of that stuff out.
Well, who were your influences then, as far as like spoken word?
Yeah. Okay. Well, definitely Tom Waits, and just sort of that sort of real cavalier sort of presentation that he does. I mean, one of the first pieces that I spoken word pieces that I learned from him was it wasn't quite that one. Anyways, it was a take on the Red Sovine song, Phantom 309. What's the first part, Dale? Big Joe and Phantom 309, right? And so that was one of the first pieces where it was like, okay, memorize this sucker, It's the whole dialogue is up there in my head, and the rest of it, he's got a Larry Taylor zipping around on the string bass, but whether it's Tom or somebody else sort of playing the guitar part, and he just sort of rolls through this set of chord changes, but the story gets delivered, right? And so yeah, I think that was one of them. And like I was saying earlier, I listened to just a lot of John Trudell and just sort of his delivery that way. Bruce Coburn is another one. And so just I guess for examples of mixing the spoken word and the music, and of just sort of finding the balance of the music and the spoken word, but also using the dialogue and using the presentation of those words in a very musical way. I really like writing stuff that okay, so the line from Raven Hair, long shiny hair tied up in a braid. There she was, stocking the shelves with some canned milk, singing along with Patsy Cline on the radio, right? And so you get that kind of a thing, and it almost a dance with the words, right? So being able to use the delivery of the monologue in a very musical way, rather than just sort of verbatim and all the rest of that stuff.
Do you do a lot of free association, like with just a theme, or do you have these written out ahead of time, or or just key points? How do you go about this? Because you flow pretty well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that stuff that I was just playing for you that you just heard, many hours. of just playing it. When I was putting myself out back to about 2008, 2009, I started putting myself in front of theater presenters. And so you're delivering a story, and you're the only one on the stage, and they're watching you, and they're watching your and all the rest of that stuff. But if I'm going like this all the time, it's just sort of like, well, there's no eye contact, right? And so it's boring really fast, right? And so that's just sort of part of the whole package, is that I'm able to go, yeah, I can just sort of keep this kind of thing going here, and I can look at you right in the eye, you know, and I just sort of keep. So, you know, that just sort of takes hours and hours. You memorize it, and away it goes. Make sure that you're not going to lose the groove, and then, you know, to just sort of do that enough as well, so that, you know, you catch people's eye and you hang on to it for about 3 seconds, you know, but you're singing right to them, and that's really powerful to them. And I guess just recently that's been a real realization for me, as much as I'm getting off on delivering this thing and working very hard to make it look as easy as possible, and just reflecting back to your observation that way. So much for me now is taking into consideration what the audience is experiencing. I'll just wrap this up, and so much of what I do with the storytelling thing, and even with my singer-songwriter stuff, it's really low-key, man. It's like really gentle. I'm not in your face. Hopefully I'm melodic. Hopefully I'm in tune. Hopefully I'm singing something that, you know, is entertaining you, or something that you can experience and to relate to as well. So where was I going with this?
You're awesome.
It's no, I guess like I say, it's for most of my stuff. I just sort of tell people, like, you don't want to. Yeah, I'm surprised that your friend actually listened to this stuff while he was driving, because most of my stuff just puts people to sleep. You know, it's like it's really laid back, it's really calm. I think you just get so much. You're inundated by radio, and you're by television and the loud things, and there's never a moment of dead air time. But if I can go, okay, that one line, he could smell the wood smoke in her hair, and her soft dark skin, right? And then you just let that sit for like 2-3 seconds. So you let the audience sort of experience that, and you sort of hit on those senses, you know. And with all due respect, I mean, one of the biggest turn-ons for me is you're out there camping with your woman, and you're around the campfire, and you get into bed that night, and you push your head into her hair, and it's just like, oh God, man, you're primal, you know, you're right back to caveman days. It's that kind of thing. So if you've experienced that, and you hear somebody actually reflect that back to you in a song, then that's what you grab onto. So those kinds of things, I'm sort of continually, constantly looking for those universal experiences that I can bring. And yes, they do. They get emotional, you know. And, hopefully, it's a good that your friend. Okay, I'll stop there.
Jean had a question for you.
Shoot, Jean.
Well, for starters, let me start by saying that I'm new to your music, and in preparation of this session, became so excited about learning more about you, and it was like when you hear like the 7th band of an album, and then you realize that's like the 7th album, and you've got 6 more albums to listen to, you know, and to hear how it evolved. And so, you know, Dale and I talked about the National Guitar Summer Workshop, and I was so delighted to see that you got to study with Frank as well and be a part of that. And I'm just becoming like a lifelong fan now. And I suppose my question for you is, what kind of advice do you have for people that feel the same way that you do, and that want to use the stick to kind of express themselves? Like, and these can be practical points or philosophical points. Just like, what kind of advice would you have for people that are new to the instrument, that want to kind of pursue a similar kind of path or vision as you? No wrong answers here.
Yeah, no wrong answers. Yeah, for sure. Going back to finding those examples, those templates. What turns you on about something that Tom Waits does, or what turns you on about something that Peter Gabriel or take your pick. What is it that turns you on? What makes you excited that way? Because you're going to have to be excited and moved when you regurgitate this back out into the world that way. And so I think there's all of those examples that are in there. But we all start off this way, parroting, for lack of a better term. Me doing Tom Waits and the Big Joe and Phantom 309, and just sort of getting right into that one, finding out why does that one turn me on so much, you know, and to actually recreate it and create it, and then you go through that process, and then as Keith Richards says, you sit down and you play a bunch of songs, and maybe one of yours is going to drip off the end of it, you know, that kind of a thing. But I guess being just sort of really true to what it is that moves you and your vision of it that way. Yeah. And I guess just quickly, we're coming up here on 2 o'clock and stuff, and for all of my stuff is pretty much all of my stuff, with the exception of Shack Tales, is up on my website. So if you just go to my website and go to recordings, you can stream all of that stuff there, and that pretty much is my sort of exploration through the stick and all the rest of that stuff. I'm just reminded of a saying that a good friend of mine wrote. He says, "Well, I've suffered for my music, now it's your turn." So, that's what you're going to see. It's sort of exposed. It's laid bare there, but it's for you all to see for sure. And you can check
the pain is inside. You let the pain out.
I just want you to. I just want to mention something before. I think we should mention the book and CD that you have called From the Fire, which is a beautiful, beautiful collection of fairy tales and fables. It's incredible, very from the Northland, really. But I just have to say that you're one of the first stick players that I ever really got to know and got to jam with, and that's a harrowing thing to do when you can barely keep both hands going, let alone both hands going in a musical way when the first few years that you're picking up the instrument. And Brother Pat, you have always been very coming from a place of integrity and beauty and just being a very genuine person. And I think that really, anybody that listens to your music for more than 4 seconds would probably realize that is where you write, and that is where you live, and I think that it would be you're just a really good example of how to walk the walk and talk the talk of being a pure musician in that sense, in the creative sense of the word. And I love your music, and I love you, and you're it's just great to see how many different facets of you that comes through in your instruments. So yeah, did you want to just briefly talk about the From the Fire?
Well, first off,
no segue there. There was no segue.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's awesome. I'm totally moved. Thanks so much, Dale. Yeah. The From the Fire, it came about just sort of telling my kids bedtime stories, and we'd play this game. They would come up with a character, and I would try and come up with a story, and usually there was life lessons that were sort of happening at the time, and some stuff they were sort of going through, so I try and integrate that into the story. So after that, there was maybe about 4 stories that were actually quite decent. And around that time as well, I was picking up these cassettes for the girls. Again, we're going back to the time of cassettes here. It sounds like dinosaur years. But one of them was East of the Sun, West of the Moon, and I think they got somebody like a Morgan Freeman to narrate it. And they got Lyle Mays, the keyboard player from Pat Metheny's band, to do the orchestration for it. And it was just a knockout for me. It was just like, oh wow, this is cool, too cool. So there was a template, right? And so I had some downtime. That's what I did with these 4 pieces, and just went through a process of writing out the story. And there it is on printed page. But then there's a whole different thing that happens with written word when you start to deliver it, and how it rolls off your tongue, how it sounds. The phrasing, the inflections, and all the rest of that stuff. And so then you go back and you kind of edit that out again until actually go back and listen to it and kind of go, okay, there's the story, and then sort of bring the music in underneath it. And so I ended up working with a publisher. She got me a synthesizer back in the day, one of the licensed units, and I got one of the little Roland Studios in a box. And for a long time, I just sort of worked and worked and worked this material. And my publisher kind of ran out of money, and I ended up just putting out the CD, which is up on the website as well. So the audio version is up on the website that you can listen to. And then just recently, I got some dough because the vision, I guess, the goal of the whole the book with the CD in it, because that's, as a parent, I sort of recognize that you can read to your kids, and there's the story for you. If you're kind of lazy or too tired that night, you can put the CD in and just play the CD. Or, you know, for the kids that's just learning how to read and is picking that up as well and digs the stories, then they can actually go through and start to pick out the words as well. So it's just sort of moved it into a different format, a different medium that way. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so just to mention again, it's www.patbraden.com.
That's the one.
Where we can peruse your files and files of creative contributions. Yeah, do you want to play us out to something? And I know Russell's going to make an announcement. Jean's going to make an announcement. But Pat, if you want to just give us a little sampling, it's been a joy to see and hear you again, man.
Hey, thanks so much for this opportunity. Great to meet you all, and I'll try and be a little bit more inclusive here in the Hangouts and in this virtual world that kind of exists. So, there we go. Here we go. Little song. It's just called Aurora Borealis. I'll just do one verse of it here, and then Jim will take over. Will you meet me on the corner at 9:15? We can talk while we walk through the park. I'm an old sunset this warm summer night. There's no place I'd rather be on this earth. Oh, and all the day's troubles are all washed away in a moment, in a lifetime. You're right. Side by side on the shore of a lake smooth as glass. I could be wrong, but I found heaven on this. Okay, I'll leave it there. How's that sound? But yeah, it's been a pleasure, and yeah, appreciate you guys checking in. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Pat. It was a pleasure hearing your story. Thanks so much for sharing that. You know, it's one thing to be unique, and certainly what you do is unique. I've never heard anyone else doing that. But you're not just unique; you're just nailing it, man. You're just it's fantastic, you know. And thanks a lot. I hope a lot of people watch this and get turned on to your stuff and moved by your music and your stories. And Dale, if you're still around, thanks for doing the interview. We want to wrap this up with a couple of announcements. So, Gene, you have a couple of announcements for us?
I do. Michael Johnstone had, who is the creator of the Lapdog, had kind of sent along the package. So I don't know. This was mentioned last week, so I don't know if you can see this. So this is this little piece right here is the extension that you can put in behind your belt here. He's also included one of the little wrenches there that comes along with it. And so just more kind of evolutions in the instrument. For those who haven't seen the Lapdog or who want to know what it's all about, you can see or read about it on the Stickist, or check out Freehands Friday number 5, where he talks about it more in details. So that was just kind of a cool little evolution in the instrument. He said he was going to send one along, and sure enough he did. And it had a nice written letter that came along with it. You know, Michael, like many Stickists I know, likes to talk. I think that's just a Stickus thing, and it's great because that's how how we're just trying to get to know each other, right? And I think that so let's talk really quickly. Russell and I have been kind of working through what comes next for July, and it looks like Dale went out and went crazy and booked a whole bunch of Canadian stick players. So Jim Riley will be our guest on the 11th of July. And NS player and vocalist and just a very cool cat, Nathan Aswell, will be joining us on the 18th. And then we have a cat named Rick Byer by way of Canada who lives in the UK now, who's a drummer and does all kinds of just exciting things on the Chapman stick, very creative. He'll be joining us on July 25th. And so we'll actually have 2 full months of Canadian stick players. We're going to take July 4th off. I hope that's okay. I'm going to spend it with my family, watching fireworks, eating hot dogs, and having fun. We do that in the States. I think those were the only announcements that I had. There is one more, because there is one more Friday in June, and that is reserved for a very special stickist who's Jim Meyer. So Jim Meyer and I had a conversation about 2 days ago on a Google Hangout, and he said that he watched all like 17 episodes in 3 days because he had like strep throat or something like that. He wasn't feeling well, and so you can imagine what a joy it was to hear Jim kind of give his stamp of approval, given that he's been running the Vancouver seminar for 13 years, and he was just very encouraging and really looking forward to getting to spend some time on a hangout with us. And so all good things for the remainder of June and certainly for July, and we'll have probably a special guest on July 11th, and so with Jim Riley. I think that's about it. Those are all the announcements that I had. Russell, did I miss anything?
Nope, that's it. Thanks, Gene. Okay, well, Free Hands Friday number 18 is a wrap. And I wanted to thank everyone for participating. And if you're watching this recording on YouTube, just to let you know, if you're available, you can watch live both on Google Plus and on YouTube. And then after we're through, it takes about a half an hour to an hour before the recording becomes available on YouTube. So thanks, everyone. Happy Free Hands Friday.
Happy Free Hands Friday.
Next week.